Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest in the Secrets of the Dam podcast. It's Thursday, December 13th, 2018, and we're here with Secrets of the Dam author and creator Jim A. Shaw. Jim, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Not too bad. Jim, on this cold morning, people are not thinking too much about gothic horror, but we're trying to explain why people should be into, especially your productions, every day. Jim, you've been an author, writer, and artist for decades. You've created different types of media and publications. What inspired you to write Secrets of the Damned?
Secrets of the Dam, let me see. I started writing that when I was going to college. We had a creative writing course, and we were asked to write a story. And I wrote what I thought was a story. It was probably about 20 pages long, and I entitled it Secrets of the Damned. So one of the things that we did during the class was it had to be passed around to everyone in the class, got a chance to read it and make comments about what it was. And then we got it back, and the prevailing comment that I got over and over and over again was, where's the rest of it? So that got me thinking that, okay, maybe it wasn't a complete story after all. So I started writing it in segments after that. So over the course of that year, which would have been 1987, I wrote the various chapters for the class to read.
Now, Jim, you've been based in Woodstock for most of your career, and not to tell tales out of school, you and I go back to my college years here in Woodstock. We met in 1985, and I always found you to be a very creative mind, very expansive thinker. Can you tell a little bit, without giving too much away, the plot of the first book, The Kirk? Because the trilogy starts with a very important first novel, The Kirk. Could you tell our listeners exactly what the plot is?
You know what? It's a classic chase plot. A chase plot being, of course, you most generally is your protagonist, which would be the main character. His name is Jack Stevens, being chased by the monster or the villain, the antagonist. But this one's kind of a reversal because he's chasing the villain in order to reclaim his manhood.
Typical outside the box thinking that most authors are known about. But Jack Stevens, for people that have heard our prologue, which talks a little bit about some of the early moments of Jack Stevens in the first book. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about Jack Stevens and what helped you form the character in your mind to pen and to print?
Jack Stevens. Well, to be perfectly frank, Cast Shadows, which was the original name of the Kirk,
yes,
was on a dare. I wrote it to be a Harlequin romance. So I was trying to picture what a Harlequin romance lead character, the heartthrob male, would be like. Of course, I got bored with it real quickly, and I had to change it to a thriller. Jack Stevens is he's a man who finds himself alone in the world now. His wife has been murdered. He feels himself inadequate because he couldn't protect her, and he vowed to her on the day that he buried her that he would be the man that he was unable to be during her life. And the story is about him going and finding the creature that killed his wife, and finding within himself the courage to face it and kill it.
Now, Jim, we know that the book has already been published. There's online versions available on Amazon. You're doing another print run very soon. But how's been the reaction to the book? Because Woodstock is known for some really good authors like yourself, but most of it's nonfiction research, history of Woodstock and various communities. I don't remember, to my knowledge, ever a Gothic book series based in Carleton County, unless I'm missing something from the 1970s. Basically, this unique process you're taking, where do you see it going? You talked to me before about doing a pilot stage of this, trying to bring it to screen. What is your ultimate goal with the Secrets of the Dam? To expand in print, but to expand in print as well as video or a big screen?
All of the above.
Okay.
Let me
Good
see.
answer. Good answer.
The Kirk is currently in production to become an audiobook. And it's well underway. Quite a bit of it's getting done.
Who's your voice actor on that? I'd like to mention her.
A wonderful young lady by the name of Nora Aga.
Now she's based in Ontario.
Yes, she is.
And how did you basically connect with her? If you like to explain it, it's quite a unique story.
Well, my wife and I and a gal who's read the books years ago. We all sat in her office one day and decided, as we spoke about this, that it should be a male voice. So I started taking auditions and listening to male voices drone on, monotone.
Really?
And, yes,
What a surprise! What a surprise!
I got tired of it. After about 50 of them, I was I had the TV on because I was that bored. I decided I would just switch from that, and I went to the page where there was many different voice actors and actresses that had samples for me to listen to. So I started listening to, of course, males again. So I'm still looking for that expressive voice. And then eventually I just started looking at the title covers, which were like excerpts from such and such a book. And I come across this one that said excerpts from Lord of the Rings. And I thought, I like Lord of the Rings. I'll give that a listen to. And it was Nora's voice. And she was very expressive, doing all the voices. And I thought, this is the perfect voice. So I emailed her and I mentioned to her that all the stuff I was going through listening to male voices and that I hadn't intended to pick a female voice, but she was just perfect. And she asked, I asked if she would be willing to audition, and she said she would. And she asked me to send her a sample of the novel, so she did her audition, and I listened to it about 15 times right in a row. I couldn't believe it because she was actually doing voices. I was looking for an expressive voice, and hers is the most expressive I've come across.
Now, the book, Self the Kirk, because I've read it, and we did, for those who've been following the Secrets of the Dam podcast, there's also media art that we've uploaded. We took a big bunch of photos at the Broadway Cemetery in Woodstock and the Kirk Cemetery outside of Meductic, and that's inspired by or inspiring for Jim for the book. But there's an interesting thing you pass on to me, and we use that in one of the media art uploads. The red Fiero plays a major role in the Kirk, and not what you would expect. It's not really a collector role or somebody that has the car for a collection. If you can explain the red Fiero, not say character, but the red Fiero, what it plays in the plot in the Kirk.
Jack Stevens is a Fiero nut. He didn't start out as a Fiero nut. His wife had a Fiero, and he didn't like it because as a race car driver, he appreciated a finely tuned sports car, and the '84 Fiero wasn't. But he had enough of an interest in them that he was keeping an eye on them. And when the '88 came out, he decided he ought to have that particular model. And of course, he doesn't buy the Fiero until after it was canceled. So he went after one of the two very last Fieros to be produced. And this is actually historically accurate. There were two Fieros produced, red GTs loaded with all the options, signed by every employee on the chassis, and they were raffled off to do different employees. I can remember reading down through the years where one of them had gone up for sale, and the owner wanted $60,000 for them, for it, and so that's where I got the number $60,000. Fiero owners are kind of wacky people, weird about their cars. I wanted to put that in there because I just didn't think the car was getting as good a rap as it should have gotten.
Because most horror or gothic novels, there's some aspect of the creator, the author. Well, we can't compare ourselves with Stephen King because he's the master of this type of horror. But there's different elements of his background growing up in the Bangor area that's in that book. Also, you look at Christine and other horror movies. Sometimes cars are part of the book in certain ways, either inspiring or like atmospheric. But Jimmy, getting back to the plot of the book, Gothic horror is coming back on many levels in 2018. Netflix, the revival of Sabrina. You got Supernatural, Stranger Things. The book itself is quite involving. What target audience are you looking at? Millennials, older readers? What do you hope to? What reading group do you hope to hit as a creator?
Well, now here's a funny story. Back when my novels were first out, they were quite popular.
And what year was that again? Just to remind our listeners.
When they were first out, early 2000s.
Okay.
One of my friends, she bought a novel. She lives in St. Stephen, Juanita Sturgeon,
Yes.
and she, I don't know, one of her children took the novel to school, and they read it in conjunction with one of the Harry Potters. And the class voted and this book was, of course, the Vandenberg Place, which is
Yes.
Vandenberg House, which is now called Forbidden Dreams.
Yes. Book 2, eh?
Book 2,
Yeah.
and it was voted better than whatever Harry Potter was out. And I thought, whoa! I said whoa for two reasons, because Rawlings is an awesome writer, but my biggest woe was I've never intended these novels to be for kids.
Obviously, yes.
So although kids like them and I'm happy they buy them, I probably would be more interested in aiming them at younger adults to probably middle-aged folks.
Because you mentioned there's like elements of romance in there, obviously, because
Just elements.
just elements, like elements of every book. Now, down the road, and we have discussed this before, planning maybe get a Kickstarter campaign started to get people motivated to help us get that to pilot or showrunner stage, a script of the books put together. Talk about the difficulties of a not say a young author like self, but experienced author.
Young.
And getting not to show our age.
I'm older than dirt.
No, combined we're over 100 years of age, which is kind of ironic because we first met. I think our combined ages was 35. So maybe for vampires we would last forever, and that's might take forever if funding does come about. But the appeal of bringing this to screen, a lot of creators want to see their productions go to screens. Going back to David Madden Richards, Senator Richards, when he first started in Miramichi, dealing with people like Stephen King, because Stephen King really, it took a while for his career to hit in. What would you prefer, like a pilot or a pilot movie? What would be something that you feel that your readers would like to see?
Miniseries.
Miniseries.
I'll tell you what. Well,
Netflix,
I
of
don't,
course. Yeah.
I don't know what the readers would want. Although I was told by a lot of readers that it was so visual they could see it as a movie. But I think a miniseries, because
To flesh out the characters.
well, yeah,
No pun
because
intended, yeah.
sometimes movies don't do their story or the characters justice
This
because
is
they
true.
don't spend enough time
This is
on
true,
it.
yeah.
So I thought a miniseries you could get right into all the different little minute details of the particular novel they'll be doing, which probably be the Kirk.
Yeah. See, there's layers upon layers within the book, and I encourage anybody to seek the book out on Amazon, to seek out the audiobook when it comes out, because the idea, this is going to be a project that obviously a private company's putting together. We want public participation because Carleton County is such a creative area. We want to get many of these people involved in supporting us, monetary or otherwise, and to bring this to the screen as something that has never been done before.
Well, I already have in mind who the lead actor should be.
Well, that's going to be a future podcast. But if anybody follows Secrets of the Dam, by the way, on Facebook, don't forget to follow Jim Shaw on Facebook, my Facebook, JJ Carrier. If you've been watching our posts lately, there's a hidden, you probably figured out who we're thinking of, but the thing is, we don't want to give it all away because, like most casting decisions, it has to be up to the actor or actress.
Right, he
to
doesn't
say
know.
yes.
It's not
He doesn't know,
official.
yeah. So that's going to be a future podcast, and hopefully it will be announced who will be Jack Stevens. We can't afford George Clooney. We can't afford Tom Hanks.
Wouldn't want him anyway.
Wouldn't want him anyway, but because Tom Hanks is not Canadian. God bless him, but he's not Canadian.
I kind of, no offense to my American friends, I love yous all.
Well,
but I want it Canadian. I want it New Brunswick, because New Brunswick is such a have-not province. We're
Acting
kind
and
of the
otherwise,
ass
yeah.
end of nowhere.
Well, it's New Brunswick. Like I said, if anybody knows what's been happening. And Nova Scotia has tons of film credits. Alberta, different provinces and territories. There's not much for New Brunswick creators besides self-funding or Kickstarter.
Well, they just did a Stephen King movie in Fredericton.
Yeah, but that was a purchase of a Stephen King script that was kind of an independent production. But that was piecemeal. There was people that were coming forward.
Proves the talents here.
Yeah, but it proves the talents because, we've had great productions in New Brunswick in the past. I mean, it's been a while since Children of a Lesser God. But we're trying to, if we do bring in the screen, to use local venues like the Broadway Cemetery, like the Kirk, and to talk about that media trip we did here. We shot a whole bunch of pictures for a previous upload to YouTube. Talk about the inspiration of those two locations because they play a big part in the first book, obviously.
They play a big part in actually all the books.
Yes.
Uh,
First Broadway, probably. So.
The Broadway Cemetery probably has a section that has all the oldest graves in the Woodstock area, easily from the 1800s and before. It's really creepy just to go in there. We used to spend a lot of time in there at night when we were kids,
Tell me about that specific grave that's the legends, the pentagram.
Lydia
headstone.
Rossison's grave.
Well, explain a little bit for the people that may not know.
So the story goes. Now, this, you can't quote me on this.
Yes.
Well, yes, you can.
Well, you can, yeah. We'll make our own.
I'm not going to say
legend.
whether it's true or not. I
Yeah.
just know that a friend of mine who was quite into Ouija boards, he made contact with as he claims, the spirit of Lydia Rosserson. Apparently, she was accused of witchcraft
Ooh.
and hung.
Ooh.
Her grave is actually in the Woodstock Cemetery. It's over towards the tree line, just as you go down the hill.
And describe the headstone because it's very unique.
Oh, it's a headstone with an actual pentagram on it.
And that's something that a lot of people don't know because it's not really a Christian graveyard because there's Jewish and different.
Oh, there's
There's
Mason graves,
Masons
there's
all over the
Jewish
place.
graves.
But to
Yeah.
see it on a headstone in 1912, 1918,
We're in 1912. Right around that area, I think.
it's similar to a military headstone from the First World War. But if you look very closely, and a lot of the information is faded off, but you can definitely see the circle of the pentagram. And if you go into our Secrets of the Dam promo reel, which is available on his YouTube channel, you'll see the photos close up. Now, the Kirk Cemetery, obviously, it's so obvious. It says the Kirk
Right.
Cemetery when you go to the main area. Talk about the Kirk and what has inspired you from that location in your writing.
Well, the Kirk used to be a spot to go parking when we were younger.
Parking.
Parking.
Oh, you mean like for fishing?
No, I was young once.
Oh,
and
romantic parking.
Yes. And the church always creeped me out. I mean, here's a church surrounded by dark woods all around. Like the Kirk itself is on a little peninsula.
Yeah, beautiful area.
You drive down out into it'd be like an island, but it's connected by a little land bridge.
Yeah.
And it's surrounded pretty well by trees, and some of the trees are pretty big, and at night it's really dark. And it always put me in mind of here was the church, a holy place, standing in this clearing with protecting the graveyard from what I always thought was evil, which abounded in the trees. I mean, that's the way my mind works. I think of things like that, and then stories start to come, and eventually I started going down there and just writing down my thoughts down, and that's how that's one of the reasons why Cast Shadows has the Kirk in it.
Now, you have a very unique process in writing, which a lot of the traditional authors still do. You write longhand. You don't write on a computer.
No,
Describe to our listeners exactly the process of that.
it's painful. What I do, I never write a story from. I'm not a sequential writer. What I do, I'm quite instinctual. I write scenes. The story forms in my head. The characters are the ones that tell me the story. They actually speak to my head. I can't write until they're doing their thing. So a lot of times I'm all over the place. Like, let's say the alphabet goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, all the way to Z.
Mm-hmm.
But now here's how I would write. I might start at A, and then I'm off to Z, and then I'll do B, and maybe I'll do E, and then I'll do G, and maybe I'll do L, M, N, O, P. I'm all over and then I piecemeal it all back together in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have I usually try to write more than one plot and thread it together, kind of like how you weave a tapestry.
Yeah.
That's pretty well all I do.
But to those out there who are under the age of 30 listening to this, there was a time, my dear friends, in this province, there was no internet, there was no Microsoft Word. The word processor that we used at college, for example, Microtext, didn't have, what do you call this, even spell check.
Oh, I can't spell.
No, and when you're writing longhand, you can see your spelling mistakes better. Now, Jimmy, we're about to wrap up because we wanted to keep this podcast a nice, what do you call it, half-hour episode with commercial.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet for now because we'll have longer
Because
podcasts.
I'm the sweet part.
Well, I'm just short here at 6'2". Now, Jimmy, how can they find you offline and online?
Offline. How would you find me offline?
Well, if you want to give your phone number, or
You'd have to come to Woodstock.
come to Woodstock, look us up.
Yes.
And if anybody's listening to this is basically want to invest in a very important project, it doesn't matter how much it
Yes,
is.
we need your money.
Well, not only money, your
All of it.
support. Well, let's put it this way: the best way to get $50, you ask for 100, and then you get to 50. That's an old joke I had with one of the Bromphets.
I thought the best way to get $50 is you haul out a handgun.
Well, this is a legal podcast. We can't encourage.
See, I'm
we
thinking-
encourage comedy. We can't encourage.
I'm
criminal
thinking of
element.
stories again.
Yes. See, Jimmy's mind. He's always got the plot around there, and the plot is today. We want to thank the people that have supported us so far. There's quite a few.
And I know who you guys are.
Yeah. And also, just as an important update, we are selling for the food bank tickets on a Jimmy Shaw original this month. $2 each, 3 for $5, and our next sale days will be in Woodstock, Friday the 14th and Saturday the 15th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Drop in and see us. We'll talk about the great work at the food bank, talk about the great work we're putting together for the Secrets of the Damned. Jimmy?
I just want to say one thing about the group Secrets of the Damned. The reason why that group is in existence, it's not to milk anybody for money or even to sell books. I want to sell books. I need to sell books. But it's I envisioned it as a way for people who like the writing or are interested in the writing to be able to talk to me, to be able to communicate with me through that. So feel free to tell me what you think.
And we all remember when Stephen King started. Obviously, there's no comparison to a New Brunswick author to Stephen King. Because
There's
King,
none really.
No, but I mean, the only connection is he started with a dream. As producers, I've been a journalist for 35 years in the province. Jimmy's been an author, creator, painter over 3 decades. You only have a dream. And I encourage anybody who's listening to this podcast to follow your dreams in the media. It could be photography, it could be videography, because maybe, who knows, in 4 years, if you're inspired by this podcast, you'll help us out with the project. Because I know for a fact that many movie projects take 5 to 10 years, TV projects, 5 to 10 years. You got to follow that dream, and this is what we're doing. It's very, very, this is the first time we've ever been doing this, working together on a project, which we should have done years ago, but I was one place in the province, he was the other place. So we thank everybody for listening today. Jimmy, any last words for our good listeners?
Yes. My biggest advice is the advice I gave to my nephew when he graduated. And this advice comes from my heart to yours. Never let life get in the way of your dreams.
And we're going to leave on that. And Jimmy, thanks for taking time this morning. Again, Secrets of the Damned on Facebook, the group. Jim A. Shaw. Look for his beautiful photo of him and his beautiful wife. There are many Jim Shaws out there. Mine, J.J. Carrier. Look for a beautiful photo of my niece Eleanor, who is my inspiration for helping Jim with the project. So that's why she's there. And our YouTube, it's under my name, J.J. Governor, Governor, Carrier. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, leave a comment. It's all appreciated. And je peux dire ça en français pour mon gang Acadie puis Québec. Cette tombe, c'est la célébration de une communauté, un personnage, un genre. It's a celebration of a community, of a person, of an author, of a genre. We want you to be part of the Kirk. Our key line is Be the Kirk for the first book. So we'll leave you with that. And on this cold December 13th, please stay warm. And as we like to say in North Shore, keep your stick in the ice. Goodbye.